Hello there.
Hi.
My name is Akeem of Sami Arts. I've seen you around here. What's your name?
My name is Gomti.
Gomti.
Yeah.
Gomti. And I've seen you've been around here, and you do so many amazing combinations of different things with the squat machine. And it's this. There's something interesting in it. And I think there's the best way to explain it is to actually show people and to get an idea of who you are and who you come from. From one thing that I've noticed on LinkedIn, we're both friends on LinkedIn. You put lots of things about motivation. So I'm going to be asking you questions about what inspires you to be you and what inspires you to exercise and train the way that you do. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So maybe we could start with maybe a quick warm up or something like that. What do you like to do when you start for your day?
So depends on the day. I split my workouts in upper body and lower body. And if it's lower body, then I'll mostly focus my stretching my legs.
Okay.
And if it's upper body, I'll stretch more of my upper body.
Okay.
But some of the common stretches that I do, for example, for my upper body, I would go down, put my hands here, and this stretches all of this area, all the lats,
Okay.
the whole of the upper body. I'll come down here, and my goal is to touch my nose all the way to the floor.
Oh,
This
wow.
stretch.
Okay.
Like this.
Wow. Okay.
So I'll do 5 of these.
Wow. So this really opens up the entire axial rotation of your arm.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
And then I'll go and
Okay.
stretch the inner thighs and my hamstrings and quads with this move.
Okay. And this is opening up your hip, it looks like.
Right.
Okay. So each time as you open up your hip, do you do any sort of like sideways motion or anything to arc some of that in and out?
Well, eventually I'll go down with my hands and stretch a little bit more.
Okay.
But that'll come later. And then I'll do some more stretches on legs. So I'll just sit here and open up more of the inner thighs area and come down like this.
Okay.
And just try to bend down.
Oh, wow. So what do you do with your chin? Are you trying to use your chin to get all the way down?
Yeah, the goal is to get my chin as close to the ground, which requires a lot of flexibility. So slowly get there.
Were you always like this?
No, I mean I didn't have any flexibility or mobility or strength.
Find
I'd
that
say
really.
17 months ago. That's when I started this journey.
Oh my God.
Calisthenics. Yeah. And then another move, which is kind of one of my moves for leg workout.
Okay.
But it also helps me stretch my legs fully for other things. And since I do a lot of isolated moves, I have to take my shoes off just to get a grip on the floor. And this move is called figure 4.
Figure 4.
It's going to stretch all of this leg area for me.
Okay.
I'll go down here, and my goal is to go as far down as I can, sit, and come back up.
Whoa, wait a minute. I've done this before, but I haven't been able to go all the way down and come back up.
And I couldn't do it 17 months ago either.
What?
I couldn't even stand on single leg for maybe 10 seconds.
Well, I did hatha yoga with my mother in high school,
Yeah.
and we would do this. This would be a standing tree pose, and then we would do a sitting tree pose, and we would
Yeah.
hold our arms up for like 30, 40 seconds,
Right.
and then we'd come back up.
Yeah.
But it was a push-up. You make this look effortless.
It takes time, but you get there.
Well, how much time?
Well, for me, when I started, here's how I started. I saw a move called skater squats. Somebody told, hey, have you tried skater squat? And I'm like, what is it? And they said it's this move, which is basically just lunge down. And when I tried to do this move first
Okay.
time, I actually pulled a muscle.
Oh.
And I couldn't work out for 2 weeks.
Oh,
And I was like, so I have no mobility or strength because I don't have stability in my body. And then I started practicing just this move. And once I got to this move, I'm like, okay, what's next? And then I started exploring other single leg moves. And then I learned that there are multiple levels of that just one move, which is you can hold your leg like this. And then do the same move. Right? Like this.
wow. You would touch your knee to the ground each time before coming up.
Right, exactly. So these are all forms of, we can call them skater squats, shrimp squats, that call both. But you know, that's how the journey started. Just looking into more and more, and like, okay, what is this called? Like, what form of exercise is this? And one day I was just sitting on YouTube trying to search, and I came across this video called Calisthenics for Beginners. And this was maybe 2 weeks into when I started changing my workouts, and I couldn't do any of it. And it was a beginner's video, and I could not do any of the exercises.
Wow.
And I was like, this is what I need. And one reason, so once I started getting into these moves, one thing that I realized is I don't get bored because there's just, you need so much focus. Like your brain has to be engaged in these moves, or you fall, or you mess up. So I felt like my mind and body had to be connected in order to improve. I got hooked since then.
So let me ask you this. I mean, if it's you got hooked, that implies there's something within you that goes for what is difficult.
That's true.
Can you please explain how you got to the place where you're willing to go for what's difficult? And hearing what you just said, you said, oh, I can't do any of the exercises. That's for me. How did you get to that place?
I think a lot of it comes from my childhood, how I grew up, where I grew up. I grew up in India, in Delhi specifically, one of the slums there. And we didn't have anything. And, you know, it's all you see is hopelessness, poverty. And I just wanted to be out of there, and I wanted to, you know, build a better life. And everything was difficult, but when you haven't seen anything better, you don't know how easy things can be.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get out of here? My dad used to say I have to study. So I studied, and I studied, and you know, just worked hard, and I got lucky. I got support from people as the Sami working hard in that environment. And I think that mindset helps. Going through the tough times and knowing that you can come out of those if you are determined. And you know, and that's how it is even today. Like when I see something, I mean, I would say there are a lot of difficult workouts. I've done conditioning workouts also that are difficult, but you don't have mind-body connection. For example, when you're running or when you're just jumping, you're jumping. You don't need to put so much of your brain into jumping, right? And yes, it's gonna increase your conditioning, but what about the rest of the elements of fitness, right? Elements of fitness are mobility, stability, flexibility, and strength, and agility, and conditioning. Like all of that has to come together. And I in a place where I had to do conditioning separately and stability separately and flexibility. Like I want a way to include all the elements in one.
Yeah.
And I think that's what calisthenics is. Like it brings everything together.
Wow. Well. So now I want to ask you more about that, but before I go deeper into the nexus of who is Gomti and what makes Gomti Gomti, could you show us some more ways that you warm up, or is that concluded? Or
so another move for my leg workout.
Yeah.
This is called cossack squat. This is a warm-up move, but eventually when I go into the full workout, I would add weight to this move to make it harder.
Okay.
So this is also going to stretch. This is really hamstring focused move. It works in all of this area.
Okay.
You sit down, come back up, and then this.
Wow. So when you first started, you could not go all the way down.
When I first started, this is what I could do.
Oh. And how often did you train to get this?
I work out 6 days a week.
So you work out 6 days a week, and
Yeah.
how many hours?
Actually, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours.
That's it?
Yeah.
The progress that you have, I've seen people take 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
minimum 5 days a week, and maybe they could get there. But the flexibility, it just seems like I've seen that, and I've worked with a lot of people as a martial artist at the age of 14 and being in my karate class.
Yeah.
I began stretching people as tall as 6'4",
Yeah.
long, thin legs, and people really short, 5 years old. And some people in their 60s, some people in their teens, you know, all throughout. For, I want to say, the last 10 years in that class before moving on to my other forms of mastery.
Yeah.
And in those classes, I noticed that there were certain things. Some people, no matter what I did, could not stretch beyond a certain point without injury.
Yeah.
You know, and finding that place of injury and then There's people I've worked with before, and there's even people that I've worked with in some of my therapy sessions as a massage therapist, where they can possibly injure their leg by pulling it a certain way. And sure, you try to prep a person, but something that I also got from chiropractors I've talked to suggests that for them, they say only certain people can stretch in some kind of ways. Like, for instance, the way that you flex, it implies it's natural. But what you're telling me is this is not natural.
It's not natural, no. I mean, I think that anybody can get here. You just need consistent practice. And one thing to know, you can go from 0 to 100, right? You have to break it down, right? Any of these moves didn't start here. Like Cossack started here, right?
Yeah,
and then it went further down.
So you pushed yourself
and then
to
it
go
went
down.
further down. So you have to see how, like, are you making tiny bit of progress every single day? You know, people make a mistake of, like, I've heard people say, oh, I could never do that. There are those types of people. And then there are those types who would be like, oh, I'm going to do it. And they just go down here and then they, injure themselves.
Yeah, they go a little too far too fast.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like consistency and slowly knowing where you are and then going just a little bit further each time is what gets you there. Is that right?
Yes. And there's a term for this in calisthenics. It's called progressions.
Progressions.
You need to know what are the progressions for you and how do you, where you are, when you move to the next level from there, then the next level, then the next level. And I do watch a lot of trainers, but I also learned that their progressions may not work for me. What are my progressions? Like, I have to find that and then work on that. And not give up that I can't do that. No, their body is different and mine is different. So what they do may not always work for me, right?
You had to actually do some work to find out who you are.
Yeah.
So that even goes to another place. So I guess while we talk, maybe we get to sit down and stretch together.
Yeah.
So maybe, here, I'll put this right here. So tell me a little bit more about finding where you are, just naturally for you.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of trial and error. Did you have moments where you thought that you could go 3 millimeters lower and that was enough for you to show you that I'm about to tear this muscle?
That's one for sure. Like, you have to know your limits, how much further you can go, but also to know that you have to make progress, you have to go completely, right? And when you're ready for it, you will know the body tells you the signals. I would keep doing certain movements and suddenly I feel my body ready and I'll go down. I mean, and I have noticed that there's so many different moves. You're like, I can't believe this. I can do that. For example, just doing this squat with the bottle. I didn't plan to do it. I was like, looks like I can do this. And I tried. And it worked. Just because my body was ready. Your body also gives you signals.
It's because your body does what?
Gives you signals.
Okay.
When it's ready.
So in learning to listen to your body, you're noticing nuances of your breath, your length, and how you can change that.
And your muscle strength and your mobility.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I see a move and I would be like, I don't think I can do this yet. And then I see it a few months after, I'm like, I think I can do that now.
So I'm also noticing something else that I didn't bring attention to yet, but you have a daringness about you.
Yeah. I think that's part of my nature too.
Okay, so your nature is that you are daring.
Yes.
Were you always like that?
I've always been like that. I don't remember a time, like, I think I've never followed the traditional approaches. I do feel like, to be different, you have to have a different style. And many times people try to fit in and try to align with what they see. They don't try to be different, or they don't try to step up to something for whatever reason. They're shy, they're scared, they don't want to be outside of the circle. But I have never felt that way. I feel like I can be on my own. I don't have to be part of people who I don't mentally connect with, right? So I'm going to find a way, to do what I want to do, to be with people who I mentally connect with, and you will find that
my next question about that is, how important is it that you find people that think like you, or do you just practice going it alone?
I don't actively try to find them. But I also know that, so there is a quote called likes attract likes. It's from Steve Harvey, or that's who I heard from first time.
Okay, Steve Harvey,
And
like
it was
attracts
this really
like.
nice video, and it spoke to me. I know I have really amazing friends. My closest circle of friends are like me. They're motivated. They don't fit in. They try to do what they think is right, and they go out and get it, and they get me. And I automatically ended up connecting with these people. Like we connected here, right?
Yep.
You see somebody and somehow you want to talk with them. And you feel like, there is some synergy. And I also noticed that you may end up connecting with wrong people, but they'll also fizzle out pretty quickly.
Okay.
Likes attract like. Their mentality won't connect with mine, and they'll automatically move away.
So one thing I've noticed happening in my life is I've had opportunities to meet and connect with people. I meet someone and there seems to be an alignment.
Yeah.
And then there's this excitement that you've made this alignment. I mean, it could be dating, it could be love relationships, it could be friendships.
Yeah.
And it could be family members that you met for the first time, and then you're finding an attraction or a connection to connect with them, learn more and share with them. And then this nervousness within you stays, and this excitement, almost a euphoria. And then something happens, life circumstance happens, and you see how they react to something.
Yeah.
You don't react to it, but you silently might make the agreement to still interact with them.
Yeah.
And maybe you've interacted with them so much to the point that there's some merging that's happened, but you never saw that part of them come out.
Yeah.
And now that you have, and then you just have to be willing to just
Let go.
let go.
Yeah.
How do you let go?
You learn with time. It used to be hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional person. I connect with people and I become closer and I come into a friendship. When I'm friends with people, I'm in it. But I'm also not the person who's going to hang out for the sake of hanging out. I'm not doing, and I'll be there for you.
So
I'll be
purposeful
cool.
interaction.
Right, yeah. If it's not purposeful, I'll give you an example. Once we were sitting outside of the gym and a group of girls were sitting and talking, and I was listening, and one girl started a short talk and she said, "So, Gomti, what food do you like?" And I'm like, I'm not in for the short conversation.
Oh, you just write off totally.
I don't know, what are you going to get after asking me what food do I like? But people, when they get to know you, your friends who get to know you, they know that's how I am. And, it may sound rude to me, and I would, if it's a new environment, new people, I'll interact. But as you talk to them more and more, they get to learn who you are, and I can be honest with them, hey, it doesn't work for me. I'm not somebody who's going to go out to eat or drink somewhere. For me, it's so much better sitting and talking, being at home, having tea and talking. I don't want to go to the bar and talk to people when there's so much noise. That's just not me. That's not fun for me. Fun for me is having a quiet time at your comfort and talking. I think it all goes to knowing that people will come and go, right people will stay, and you don't have to worry so much about forcing people in your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the importance of not forcing people into your life, yet also keeping your mind open to what comes in and being open to the possibility, not closing your mind, being willing to play in it. But what Gomti also just said is that she made boundaries right off about what she's okay for, what she's not. It's not about talking for just anything. It has to be purposeful interaction. When it's not interaction, she cuts the connection and says right off, that doesn't work for me. And she also has confidence enough in herself that when that person goes, that more people will show up that will be in alignment that she can interact with. Did I get that right?
You did, yeah. That's exactly how I think. For example, people take vacation to go see places. I take vacation to meet those closest people I've built connections with. They are all living in different parts of the world. Like my closest friend lives in India, one lives in Australia, one lives in Munich, one lives in Dallas. And those are the places I travel to because my connections are there. You know, so I would make that effort to be with those types of people, and they would come to me also. It's both ways. It's not one way.
So you don't interact with people one way. You don't receive by connecting with them when they don't connect with you.
Yeah.
And you also are willing to go meet them where they are because it's the understanding that both of you are going to meet each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Did you have to make that boundary, or did it just turn out that way?
I think that's how I've always been.
Yep.
You know, I have just been very vocal about how I am, who I am, and how I want to spend my time with, and who I want to spend my time with.
Yes. So connecting the dots with the way that you exercise and that you train, it's almost that you're selective with your exercises in a very similar relationship.
That's true.
So the exercise, in a way, seems like another friend that you're interacting with.
Yeah.
So when you turned around earlier,
Yeah.
I'm taking a while to get around to this, but I'm playing with this. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm seeing here is if you think of each hard to do exercise as something that's going to make you better, like a friend that you choose to interact with,
That's right.
it's not a purposeless exercise.
Yeah.
So you don't do just any kind of exercise for any reason. You don't meet just anybody for no reason. Everything is deliberate.
Yes.
And as it's deliberate, that is the friendship. Okay.
It is my friend. I mean, the way I work out is my friend. I'm not just moving my body, I'm engaging my brain in it.
Yes.
You know, it's making me think, it's making me focus. And it's just, you know, the relationship. It's funny, a lot of people I used to work out, when I was not already doing calisthenics, I started working out in late 2017. You know, I got into a divorce situation. It was really, you know, stressful, and
Yeah.
I had to get my mind into something and just worrying about it. And I started working out. And as I worked out, I was doing more and more, and I was like, I want to go join some classes somewhere, but the classes were not as intense as I got to for myself. Somebody told me about a place which used to be called CG Arena. They should shut down. I went there. It was really hard, heavy conditioning workout. I remember going into the class first time, puking in the first 5 minutes in the warm-up.
Wow.
It was that hard, but I needed something to get my intensity out. You know, there was a lot going on in the life.
Right.
And I kept going there. I did that for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I got really, really strong and fast. But I learned that it was a lot about moving my body and getting my anger out. I don't have anger anymore. You know, I don't feel the need to just move my body. What I feel is, how do I engage my body in a way that it's like a whole exercise. Like everything that I do has to be whole, you know.
Holistic.
It has to engage everything of me. Like, you know, there's a term called being, like how your being is completely invested in what you're doing. And I think once I found calisthenics, and many of my friends who used to work out with me, or I used to work out with them, they don't get it.
Huh.
And they didn't get it for a long time, and they kept saying, and I post a lot of videos, you have seen that, right? They'll say, you keep doing the same thing every single day, it's so boring.
Oh.
I heard that for a long time.
Wow.
But now everybody is coming to me and telling me, can you teach me?
Okay.
Because I have made
You
that
have
shift.
longevity.
I've gotten to a point where people are like, that is impressive. I do that too. And that's how it works. Like people don't get it. People don't want to take time. Like my friends say, when they go to the gym, they just want to burn calories. They want to build muscle.
I see.
Engaging the brain. They said, oh, my brain was engaged when I was working. I don't want to work.
Oh.
So they take it as work.
I
For
see.
me, it's not work. So it's really different.
Right.
So,
Right. And the way that you move, it's like a synthesis that's happening between mind, body, and spirit.
yeah.
And the work that you choose, from what I understand as well, you're an engineer.
I'm an engineer, yeah.
Okay, so I'm also an engineer. So
Yeah.
the engineer mindset is constantly looking for things to play with. And I've seen engineers be willing to work all the time.
Yeah.
Because we love to learn more things.
That's true. That
Right?
is so true. I was one of them. I spent all my day working, my nights working. I love doing it. But then I also learned that I need to focus on my wellness. I need to focus on this body.
Yes.
That work is engaging, but what about the rest? I need the longevity and I need something else to engage, me.
And that's interesting that you say that, because I've met a lot of different engineers, different types of engineers, particularly the network engineer types, some dev engineers.
Yeah.
And out of those engineers that I've met, we all have gained a minimum of 30 to 50 pounds after about 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the responsibilities.
Yeah.
If we work on-call schedules, we're working 70 hours a week. We'll work Saturday and Sunday and come right back in for work on Monday. We might have families. I notice a high rate of divorce among engineers.
Yeah.
But I also noticed that a lot of them have not engaged their bodies. And so now I think you're hinting to the mind-body connection there.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to engage your body. So engineers are engaging a lot of their mind. What is the body?
Yeah.
And there are people who are always engaging their body, but not mind.
Yeah.
How do you bring the two together?
Yes.
My son tells me, I'm there. I'm fully present with him. 4:30 p.m., my work is done. And now my time is for me and him.
Wow. And he does get that time.
Yeah.
And you dedicate that time, like it sounds like you have the same level of dedication with your exercise as well.
Yeah, we work out together. He's always with me when, now today's at his dad's home, so I'm working out alone. Yesterday he was with me and we worked out together.
Nice.
You might have seen a video on LinkedIn where he's box jumping and I'm doing my
Yes.
squats.
Yes.
So, and I don't want to sacrifice my family, my son, and my body for work. I want to be, and I've also learned I am so much better at work now that I focus on all the other important elements of my life, like my wellness and my, family.
So now that brings up into something else. So this is more of a feminine question at this point.
Yeah.
A feminine engineer, a female engineer, I have not seen a lot of. But the ones that I have met and interacted with, they usually are so dedicated to their work. And I seem to think that there was a double standard for women, especially when women got pregnant as engineers.
Yeah.
It's something that I've seen in the American workplace. And from what I've understood from people before me, it's gone back in the 60s to 70s when women started working from home.
Yeah.
They'd come out and they'd become whatever, as a therapist, an engineer.
Yeah.
There's several people. One is management, which is another extremely lots of commitment involved. And one common thing that I've noticed between all the different women that I've talked to and interviewed between the 70s up to now is that there's this underscore double standard that, you're the mom. That means you need to completely spend all of your time at home taking care of your kids. Now, the other thing that's happened since the 90s is women now are leaving the homes. But what are happening to the kids? Where's the quality of time with the kids? And why is mom being forced to be the one that makes the difference between the child being raised or not? And it's really supposed to be the mom, mother, and the father.
Yeah. I think that's how society was, and I think it's slowly changing. It's not where it should be, but we're moving in the right direction. I do think, when it comes to careers, women, because they are dedicated to people, especially people close in their life, they tend to make the sacrifices more than the men do. They inherently do it.
Wow.
Some may not, but most want to make that sacrifice. And I think kudos to everybody who wants to do that, and those who want to focus on both, whatever works for everyone. But I do tell careers to, whatever is most important to you, that you spend your more time. For men, their career and their job tends to be more important. They don't realize their family is as important until they get to a point where they're losing it. Female, they're the other way. Their family first. Also, women choose their careers different than men. It, I think it comes from men are interested in things and women are interested in people. Okay?
Interesting.
Right? When you go to healthcare systems, you'll find a lot of women. You go to HR, you'll find a lot of women. Look at teaching, so many women. Look at HR. Why are there more women there? Because it's about interacting with people. Women like to talk. Women like to, emotionally connect with people. Men are also better leaders because they want to take care of people.
Yep.
So if you see management, women management tend to do better, their teams do better compared to men. I don't know if there is data there, but my personal observation is they are, that's how they are built. They're built to take care of people, to talk to people. Like I like talking to people. Most men don't want to talk to people, right? Most men just want to be, there's this really amazing comedy video that I saw once, and they said men's brain is built of boxes. Okay, they would take out a box and only think about that or talk about that topic, and then put it back, and then they also have a box that's called nothing box. They can go into that nothing box and think about nothing. And I felt that actually seemed true from my observation. Women don't have that box. Women don't have boxes. Women connect a lot of things together. That's why they can multitask better.
Wow.
Guys can multitask better.
Right, no.
Right?
Not usually. Not usually. I've seen some guys do it, but then I also noticed that the box thing, that the concept, it's been read. There's been neuroscience stuff I've come across that shows they were reading a male's body and a female's body. They noticed more interconnections between all four of the lobes in the brain from the woman's mind. And you see it, if anyone doesn't believe me, then ask a woman to play hopscotch and ask a guy to play hopscotch. Who will fail that game the fastest? It's usually the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I get
just
it.
more synapses is moving back and forth and left and right.
Yeah.
And another thing, though, that you were saying that I thought was quite interesting about the male thinking about things and be more centered on career. My experience and things that I've noticed from other men, it brings up a really good point about what is value. Now, I've heard this saying from people that I've studied in the past. They said something like, women are in the undertone to be beauty objects, and men in the undertone are supposed to be success objects. As in, you value a man based on his level of success. Well, if men are playing that game and following what society wants them to be, and you want to be successful, then what do you go for? Well, you can see the cars, you can see the status, you can see the beating the neighbor at taking care of your yard better than the neighbor, It's like, no, I'm the best. And then this status and this hierarchy, and then side by side with this energy of I've got to get the money. And in the undertone, in the shadow side of the man, there's this energy that feels like it's up to me and only me to bring home money to take care of my family. And I've seen males and experienced it myself in our shadows of not taking care of any of our body's needs and taking care of everybody else. Because we wanted that success so bad. We weren't willing to get in our mind and our body and connected with spirit.
Yeah, and I think that's also because that's how society had been. Men are expected to take care of their family, go earn money. Even today, like sometimes I see this conflict coming from women where the women, want to go and work, and that's great, they work, or they want to be, equal and independent. But then when you go out on a date with a guy, they also expect the guy to pay the bill, right? And I think about it like, look, you can be either this side or that side, right? If it's about equality, they have to, right? Pay your share, and there are many other situations where I think people still, society is training fast, like these people are still confused. In certain ways, they said, we want to be equal, but then the same people who want to be equal, and there are things to make it like the man has to take care of me, the man has to earn for me, the man has to be,
Wow.
And be the provider, be the person who takes care of family. And I've seen some women playing that role, and I think it's going to increase day by day. But the generation that we're seeing three different generations. We're seeing the boomers, and we're seeing the millennials, and we're seeing the Gen Z.
Yeah.
And when you see Gen Z, they are more on that side. You see millennials, they're kind of confused, because they have seen that virtuality and they're seeing this new virtuality, right?
Yeah.
And there are boomers who are like completely out of it, they don't know how the world is changing.
See, now you also brought up another really good point, because I notice in the masculine world that there's a confusion that's happening in the masculine body
they
too.
Don't get it.
Where it's like, okay, which way to be more successful? Well, I grew up in a household where, I've heard this from many men, and I myself, I grew up in a household with a very strong mother.
Yeah.
But she didn't dominate my father. I did watch them fight.
Yeah.
But it was understanding that they were both together, and whenever my dad said something, she listened.
Yeah.
When my mother said something, my dad listened.
Yeah.
Sometimes begrudgingly, but he listened.
Yeah.
And so it was this energy of balance for me. And I grew up in a household with mom and dad.
Yeah.
And what I'm noticing also is that in these societies now, as us men have grown up, I'm pre-millennial, I'm Generation X.
Yeah.
So, before 86, I'm born in 80. So around the 86-ish or time or so, I started noticing these trends, people who were born 86 and now, that they now no longer connect with the aspect of their father, as in, you stay home, you take care of your family, you do this and you do that. You can go to bowling parties. On the shadow side, you can womanize. You can cheat on your wife, and society makes it okay to get away with things like that. And so there's a lot of this, and then this other unsaid thing that's happened. As long as you agree to play that game, and guys from 86 and up, at the very least, are no longer playing this game in the same way. Some remember it. But they're like, I would never. This is so disgusting. Meanwhile, they haven't completely aligned with their masculinity either. So they're in this place in between where they're trying to they have no rites of passage process. Like the father taking the kid out at 18 to, here's your keys, you go out into the world. Some countries are still doing that. I had the understanding actually from someone from Mexico, from one part of Mexico, Costa Rica. There's apparently this custom where they, at 18, girls and boys alike, but they give them the keys, and they say, okay, you go out into the world now. Because they're also trusting that the community will take care of them, because everyone knows everyone. That works a lot better than it does in a society where there's a lot of people who spend a lot of their time in the phones and not connecting with people. So this is also coming back to what you said earlier, the importance of connecting with people. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I teach my son is that the world is going online, but you can never replace the value of that in-person connection. That's why I take him out, just to play with other kids, and I always teach him, look, you'll lose friends, you'll gain friends, and eventually those who are going to stay with you are the ones who are more like you, who think like you, good or bad. If you're bad, you're going to attract bad people. I tell him, like, you attract what you are, right? You become who you spend time with.
And you learned this when you grew up, right? And you mentioned that you grew up in what part of India? Delhi?
Yeah.
So is that New Delhi or Delhi? Is there a difference?
Well, there is Old Delhi and New Delhi, and then there is Outer Delhi. So the slum that I lived in was in Outer Delhi, which is the rural slumish part of India. And then there is New Delhi, the more modern advanced part of Delhi. And then there is the Old Delhi, which is a really old part of Delhi, where you see all these old structures like Red Fort and, some other, very old historical things. Yeah, there are multiple parts. I mean, I grew up in a place called Sultanpuri, and there are a couple of slums in Delhi. This is the worst slum of Delhi.
Wow.
And it's, you see a lot of misery. I've seen dead bodies hanging on the tree.
Wow.
As I'm walking.
You mean they're hung?
Yeah.
So were they hung related on the racial tension?
No,
when I
racial
mentioned
tension,
that,
just a lot of crime.
okay.
It was just a lot of crime.
Wow.
There was a lot of drug addicts. People don't have, a way to make money. They're not educated. He's a graphics designer now, which he became
a designer
after the age of, I don't know, 30 or something.
Yeah.
But he didn't go to school. All three of my siblings dropped out of school in primary and middle school.
Wow.
I was the only one who continued studying. And that's the case with majority of the people where I grew up. You know, education is not the focus. The focus is somehow bring the money so you can survive the next day.
Survival. So it's monetary survival.
It's all about survival. We didn't have food every day. We didn't have food for 3 meals of the day. I grew up on the bread and rice. That's it. You know, that too, if you get it twice, that's pretty good for the day. And you know, and that's how pretty much everybody is. So the crime is normal. Whenever there's poverty, you'll find crime.
Yes.
Because there's no other way for people. You know, you snatch things from others because, you know, there's just no other way. Where is it going to come from?
Right, and it's kind of interpretation that the stealing was inspired by people not having government support, also not having familial support, which is probably generationally created. It was probably created by not supporting families to have the means to take care of their families.
So, I mean, where I lived, there were all sorts of people. I come from, if I go to caste-based system in India, I am the highest caste, Brahmin, by birth.
So Brahmin.
Okay. If you go by, you know, the old times,
right,
we should have been the rich people,
right,
or not. You know, we don't have the generational wealth, and most people don't anymore. The times have changed. So where I grew up, it's everybody. It's all caste. Caste didn't matter. Everybody goes in the same boat. Everybody is poor.
Okay.
And you know, I mean, my dad was not poor. We lost our wealth in 1984 in riots. The Prime Minister of India was murdered in 1984, and that caused riots. And in that riot, all my dad's businesses were burned down.
Wow.
So that's how we became poor.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, and I've heard stories also from people from other countries as well that maybe their dollar dropped from riots. Wow. There are places in the United States where there are riots that have happened. But usually what would happen with those riots, like the Watts riot in 1960, even the racial riots, the latest one that I know of in 1994, Rodney King. And with these different riots, every time the state would come in and declare the area a disaster area. In Texas itself, if there's a weather issue, they would declare it a disaster area. The tornadoes that hit recently, disaster area. So what happens? The government comes in, infuses money into it, and then it's passed from the state back to people.
Delhi riots were led by the government.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in India, you don't get as much government support. You do get, like, I used to get food in school. Like, that's one reason we went to school, because we would get lunch at school. You know? But other than that, there is no support, there is no social security, there is no food stamps.
Wow.
You know, we don't have any.
No social programs.
Yeah. There are no social programs.
You actually said something really important there, because there's been talk recently in the United States politics that there are some parts of the, not just Republican Party, but there's parts of certain factions that want to do away with all social programs. Social security, food services, food stamps. They're literally talking about getting rid of those things. Now, they're also talking about getting rid of women's right to choose if they want to have a child or abort. They're wanting to get rid of that and make it, in fact, they're wanting to make it like a law to where they lock women up.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible that some of the states just go, I think both the parties are extreme in some way. And that's why, like, I feel like politically homeless, because I can't agree with a lot of things on both sides. Like food stamps and social programs and free education and free healthcare. I think it's so important for people to focus on what's important in their life. Food stamps, I would think if you give food stamps, you also limit what they can buy for the food stamps. For example, a lot of people with food stamps end up buying Coke or soda or beer, and I think restrict those transports, force people to buy food that's going to elevate their health. And I know people might think healthy food is expensive. I'm a vegetarian and I buy a ton of vegetables. And we can survive with $50 for the week for the whole family with vegetables. So you just have to, educate people. how to use that money that they get to eat healthy. So if you added that to food stamp, I think food stamp would be way more successful than they are today.
So health and
don't
education.
Provide, health, education.
And
Don't provide
then-
blind resources. Provide education with the money or stamps that you're giving people, right? Yeah. I mean, it could be good, but you can't take it away. Like, I do not think taking food stamps away is going to do any good to the society.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that we were able to get this far in depth in our conversation. This is a sample of the stuff that I've been seeing on your LinkedIn, and you're big about motivation. And, you know, we're talking about this social program, and you came up in a place that had no social program, but you figured out, and your brother figured out how to accomplish this. Did this happen because of your family's support? Or was this your grit? Was it the mentality that you used with these exercises, and these exercises being your friend, just like all the knowledge and resources that you've learned to become an engineer?
Yeah.
Is that how you got through that?
I mean, family, we didn't have anything. So family support.
Yeah.
The support that I count on is my dad never restricted me, never stopped me from doing anything.
Okay.
Which applies to a lot of girls growing up there. I was free to go do anything while other girls were forced to stay in home.
Wow.
In that environment.
Wow.
So my dad was different. My mom, on the other hand, was completely against me studying and doing anything. She would come to my school, beat me up there, she would burn my clothes, she would burn my books. So I had two completely different types of parents growing up.
Why was your dad so okay with your freedom, and why was your mother not okay with your freedom outside of the home?
I think, well, my mother had a terrible background too. When she got married, completely different stage, she never went to school, and when she gave birth to a girl child, which was my elder sister,
Okay.
where she lived, she was thrown out of her home, and she was not even 20 years old. And this is when the state she lived in, there was flooding going on, and she was running around with this little girl. That's what my dad told me.
Wow.
And that's her background. And my dad found her homeless, and my dad brought her home
Wow.
to give her shelter for whenever she needed. And that's how, they started living together. She didn't have a place to go back to. Her own family didn't take her in. And I feel she thought life was very unjust to her.
Yeah.
I think that her family didn't support her.
Yeah.
And then she had to spend the rest of her life with a guy who was 20 years older than her. That's how old my dad was. And he found her, more than 20 years older than her. So I just think maybe her own situation played a role, and she wanted to have more control on people, at least her family, and she couldn't control me,
Wow.
She was controlling, like, girls are expected to do housework. I'm like, what housework should I do? The only thing that we need to do is during around 11 o'clock, the water comes, and I am the that we go, stand in the line, fill in the water, and come back home. Nobody else does it.
Wow.
I'm like, I used to get out of the school at lunchtime to come, take the containers, go in the line, fill it, and bring it back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody else does it. You want me to do the work? I'm like, I'm the only one doing the work here.
Wow.
Now you don't want me to be in the school. But I just, I didn't really care. I mean, she used to beat, and she would, like, the clothes that I got was from neighbors, their clothes.
Yeah.
I remember my first day of school, and I didn't have flip-flops. I went bare feet, and I had a really long t-shirt on, and the teacher was like, why are you not wearing a pant? I'm like, I have an underwear down there. You just can't see it, and I didn't have shoes. And I was lucky because I was so motivated to study, because my dad said the only way to come out of this situation was to study. So I was just studying, and the teachers who came from good areas to teach there, they brought me flip-flops. One of them sewed me a sweater.
Wow.
One took me to get shoes. One got me uniform, and gave me books and stationery. So I got a lot of support because of the motivation. And they hadn't seen me very motivated, in that environment. So, and it was hard at home because I'm getting things from people, but when I bring it home, my mother destroys them.
Oh, why would she destroy them, you think?
She was angry because I didn't listen to her.
Oh.
I still went to school and I studied. Whatever time I got, I was studying.
I see.
And she didn't like that I didn't listen to her. Which others did, so they were okay. They didn't care.
So that goes back to the question of, for one, you said something I thought was pretty interesting. You're a mother. Okay, I didn't believe that at first. Okay, so you're a mother. And so being a mother, what is it that you're teaching your son? Because it sounds like he works out with you, he exercises with you. He knows that you dedicate time interacting with him. He can say it himself, how dedicated you are into interacting with him.
Yeah.
And how old is he again?
He's 9 years old.
So he's 9. That's a really, really beautiful age.
Yeah.
I noticed some challenge by the time that, for instance, my daughter, she's now 16. And, you're noticing the hormones. And I have a son, he's 14. He's going to be 15 next week.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing the hormones. And I'm like, wow, there's some big challenges. They're nothing like they were when they were 9, a little bit sweeter. But I also noticed something happening. For me, when I noticed that I taught my kids to have independence, I taught my daughter to have her own access to herself. I taught her how to learn about herself. I taught her to go out and ask more questions about what she's looking for, but don't believe everything that you hear from everyone.
Yeah.
Take the information back and process it first.
That is so important. That's what I tell my son too.
Yeah.
Listen to everybody.
Yeah.
But you decide, you evaluate what makes sense.
Yes. To you.
Yes.
So important. You're teaching him how to listen to himself.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Well, wow, we've talked for 52 minutes here.
Already?
It's hard to believe that.
I know. Yeah, I tell my son that family is not only by blood. Okay, blood doesn't define your family.
No.
Family is people who take care of you. And it makes me emotional because I've had a lot of people who had no relation with me. My classmates, the other girls. There was one girl, her name is Lashmi. And she would sneak me into her home. She lived in a little bit better place, and her mom was singing in shows and stuff, so they had a better life. She would sneak me in from another person's home from the rooftop, come down, hide me under the bed in the second floor they had, bring me food.
Wow.
Bring me food in school. And her mother got to know once I beat her bad. But she did what she could. And I've seen that from girls who didn't have much, but they were ready to share. I had teachers, who were ready to share. And eventually, I came across a person. Long story how I ended up here. I wouldn't have been here. But once I finished my diploma, somebody connected me to a person. His name is Alok, sir. I call him sir. His name is Alok. And somebody told him he supports students, people who don't have resources and help them with education and stuff. They told him about me. He called me and he said, hey, I can support, I can sponsor you for education and books and whatever you need. I was like, yes. I said yes. And then the girl who told him went back to him again and said she lives in the slums. Even if you give her money, she's in a bad place. And then he called me and again he said, you live there. And I was like, yes. I did not give it any thought. I went home and I packed my 2 books and another pair of clothes. One I was wearing and one was, that's all I had. And I was like, I'm ready to come. And he's like, too late at night. Come tomorrow. The next day was Saturday. Office was closed. And I didn't sleep the whole night. I was ready to go. I had few rupees to take the bus, but then there was another person who helped me with tuitions in the school. He taught me, and he gave me 100 rupees that day to take an auto rickshaw, to go to this place. And I didn't tell anybody where I was going. My dad wasn't at home. He was out trying to find work. I didn't inform anyone. He was the only one who knew. I gave him the number and I said, when my dad comes, give him
You speak very good English
You
now.
know, I don't know how, honestly. But that happened almost a year before I came to US. I actually started talking in English. But he taught me everything from scratch in English. Prepared me for the entrance exam. I got into one of the best colleges, engineering colleges. And it was hard because everything was in English. My background was English. The first semester, I used to score 80%, 90%.
Wow.
And I scored first time 56%.
Oh.
You know, that was like shocker,
Yeah.
but at least I was still doing okay. When I finished my degree finally, I ended up with 78%. You know, so I went up. You just keep working out. It's, you know, and that's what your background teaches you. Like you can use your hardship and background to know that you can make it better. You know, there will be challenges and struggles.
Yes.
But you have to be the one who puts effort. He's been supporting me. He's keeping me in his home. He's giving me food. He's taking me wherever I need to be. He's teaching me. He's an engineer from the best college, university, in India.
Wow.
He's super smart, intelligent. Like,
Yep.
he spent so much time teaching me. He would take me everywhere he was going so he could teach me the whole time. It's my responsibility to do good.
Wow, you hear what she just said, everyone? She said when someone gave her something, she didn't take it as something to just take. She said it's my responsibility to make good on the investment that was made in me.
Yeah. And how many people come across somebody like that? I mean,
Right.
think about
Right.
how
That-
lucky I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been, and what I'm also noticing is that Gomti has been very fortunate. One could say, from my first observation, you're this amazing because you were alone. But what I'm realizing is that you're amazing because you didn't waste what was given to support you. This is the difference between someone giving something to you and giving you an opportunity to make something good at what you have. You could have barely anything, but with the support of a community or with the support of some sort of service or help, even if it's just her friend who was her age, risking being beaten by her mother, still saying, I want to do this because I feel like this is right. I'm going to take care of my friend. The heart involved in the caring and the love that's involved is so much to say to that. And that's what builds character. Being willing to take something and make that it's worthwhile and appreciate all that people are doing, and knowing that it's not that you keep getting more from them, it's that you eventually work yourself to a point of independence and where you go up and you rise and you can become an engineer and a very successful mother like Gomti.
Yeah, and you extend that support to others, right? Like
Yeah.
you get it, and then you have to give it forward.
You have to give it forward.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like when I see it, like how others are struggling, I'm like, I was one of them. You know, I feel like you could do a little bit to help somebody. Yeah, I mean, and you would hope that they would take it and they would actually use it. You know, not everybody does that.
Right. No.
But at least, your background can teach you a lot about humanity, and when people do something good for you, it becomes your responsibility to help others, the same way.
So when you accept something, you're also accepting the responsibility to honor it,
Yeah.
as well as you're honoring yourself, because this is giving you a chance at your future. Wow. So as we wrap this up, I do want to ask, on LinkedIn, is there a way that people can connect with you?
Yeah, I mean.
Or do you have a website that you'd like us to connect to? Or?
I don't have a website, but.
Maybe you don't need it in this day and age. There's so many media.
Well, I do have a YouTube channel where I post the workouts that I do.
Oh, you do? What's the YouTube page?
The YouTube channel, if you search by Gomti Mehta.
Okay, so Gomti Meta.
Mehta.
Mehta, sorry.
Yeah.
Mehta.
Yeah. So if you search, the handle is @Gomti Mehta.
At Gomti Mehta.
Yeah, the
Okay.
channel handle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Gomti, Thank you for being the wonderful, shining human being that you are.
Thank you for your time to listen to my story and how, why am I the way I am.
I would love to hear more about your motivations and how you transmute all of your motivations into the present. It sounds like you brought all of your past to the present. You didn't leave the past in the past. You took the lessons and you brought them forward, and you're ready to share them out with the rest of the world so they can save themselves some suffering and save themselves some time and problems, and even share something with their kids about where they can get. Thank you, Gomti.
Thank you so much.